Maybe? Maybe. There, I think. I'm hearing echo. Hope you're not. We'll see. Anyway. Let's see. Anyway, hopefully you can hear me. Let me check real quick. Test, test, test. Test, test, test. Test. Testing, testing. Testing, testing. Okay, no echo. That's fine. Anyway, welcome to my stream. I'm Zero1. Thank you for joining me today. I'm playing Timberborn, as you might have seen, and there's a difference though today. Today, at least, I'm starting with an experiment. Normally, I just play the game, but they added a whole bunch of automation features in the 1.0 release, and most of those are logic-based, so you can do a lot of programming, more or less, with it to automate your base. And so, I understand how they work in general, and there are a few things I need to tweak my understanding on, and I figured, hey, maybe there are a lot of people who want to learn that sort of thing as well. So let's see what we can do and get up to with the logic here in the game. And this echo's going to drive me mad. Hang on a second, let me see. See, I got the new Elgato Wave 3 Mark II microphone, which is identical except for a few things to what I already had. And there, much better, much better, I think. And I thought I had it set up properly the other day, but I'm not entirely sure. But we're gonna roll with it anyway, and hopefully everything works out. But what you can see here, as I switch over, hopefully, to the actual game, is I'm in the map editor, so I can create a simple world with plenty of resources so we can play around with it. And so we're going to learn on this map, and I'm giving some early game resources, well, lots of resources, period, so that everything just goes right off the bat. So this is my first time in the map editor, so I have no idea what I'm doing. Logic camp. Now, how do we exit out of here? Exit the main menu. New game. Folktales. Custom maps. Logic camp. We'll go normal. There's not really much to see to this map, obviously, but that doesn't matter. That's not what we're here for. What we're here for is logic. Logic camp. Alright, so water's coming in, good. And we're getting a green area near it, that's good. So, just because, we'll go ahead and, well, first of all, we're turning on the cheats. If I can remember how to do that. There we go. And we're gonna build some lodgings for these poor little beavers. Poor defenseless beavers. And just to be completely unreasonable, excuse me, beavers, or I'm going to drop this right on you. Finish now, because I forgot to hit the button. Now, we have easy access resources that I provided, like I said. These are what they call reserve resources. So, strictly speaking, I don't have to go out and do any gathering of most materials. Though, I was expecting these bushes to be healthy already. I didn't add food, so that's a fault on my part. We'll put a fair amount of blueberries in there. Will you finish now? Thank you. Modify inventory. We'll give 100. Well, didn't mean to give that much. Click add, hold control to remove. Let's remove 1,000. There. That way they have food without having way too much. Because this isn't about the building. It isn't about collection and everything else. It's about the logic of everything. But still gotta prep everything. Which I should have done earlier. I didn't exactly plan this whole thing out well in advance. I just thought about it kind of overnight and decided, hey, maybe this should be a thing. So there's going to be some setup here. There's going to be some preparation failures. But ultimately, everything will work out. Now, I don't know if they'll tap into that or store things in there once they use it, but we'll see. I've never used any of the reserve stuff before. I've never had access to it before, so we'll see. All right. Let's build a little more storage for logs just in case. I'm not hearing the game at all. Is the game muted? Why is the game muted? There we go. Obviously, I don't have everything set up properly yet. But we'll get to that later. And we want a water source, or access to water. All right. So, dealing with the automation, it's based on a lot of sensors. So we have a basic lever, which we're not going to use here. That just turns things on and off. at the flick of your lever, or mouse button as the case may be. A relay, which reverses logic, or at least allows you to use logic. That's one of the key components. The sensors, you can think of those as variables, because those are going to change, and those are going to be what you're going to base your logic on. And so, let's go ahead and build a depth sensor. We'll also build a contamination sensor. And currently, what you'll see is this. With the contamination sensor, it's basically off by default at the moment because, hey, we have no contamination, no bad water, no bad tide. But what we can do is set it with greater than, less than, greater or equal to, less than or equal to, or does not equal. And that applies to pretty much all the sensors. So, again, we have that same situation here with a threshold measurement, etc. So the current measurement is 42. So we know that basically our water level is below currently 0.5 meters. It's at 0.43 meters. And what we can do is, if it's greater than, say, 0.35, then our sensor turns on. Or if we flip it around and say it's less than 0.35, then it turns off. Or we can bump that back up to 50 or 55 or whatever. And it works like that. So this is a variable. It's basically on or off. We can even say, hey, if it's exactly 43, well, you can't do 0.43, but you can get close, I guess. Or some random amount. I don't know if there is an option for just setting it to a particular value other than a multiple of 0.05 or not, but if there was, that would be great. But equal is not exactly great. You generally want to use greater than or equal to, or less than or equal to, instead of actual equal. But you can also use does not equal. So in this particular case, it does not equal 0.45 meters, but it does equal 0.42 meters at the moment. So it does not equal one another, therefore the sensor is on. So that's how that kind of works. But what we're going to do is say less than 0.45 at the moment. And you can also build sensors for inventory management. Let me see, where is it? Resource counter. I say build it anyway. Now, we can do that for water or any of the other resources you can collect. In our case, we're going to go with logs. Let's see, greater than or equal to say 50% of our capacity for our logs. This one, we're going to do the same for planks. Alright, so this is off because our inventory of logs is not at 50% of capacity or better. Now, I think that doesn't count these. I'm not sure, to be honest. Oh, we need a hauling post as well. One moment. All right. Now, if we look at this, our log measurement is at 41% capacity. That's probably counting both that, which holds 180, and that, which holds 160. So we're less than 50% at this point. And our water capacity, well, let's build another resource measurement for that. Water greater than or equal to 50%. That's probably going to be on since we have the these. Well, no. These are only 300 each. This holds 1,200 water. So we are less than 50% for that, which kind of checks out. These two together adds up to 600, but added to that makes it 1,800 capacity. Therefore, probably about 20%. All right, so how does logic play play into this? Well, you see a lot of the buildings like this water pump now have an automate feature. And you click that and choose what's going to affect it. Let me rename these so that they're more clear in the selectors. So we go to water total. Boom. If the water total is on or greater, if the water level is greater than 50%, then this will turn on. And anything that depends on this particular resource counter will respond directly to that. So if that particular resource counter is on, then this building will be on. So if we flip this logic around, less than equal to 50%, that becomes true, and therefore the building turns on. Which makes sense. It's simple, but it makes sense. We'll do the same thing for the log gathering. So we have that. And I didn't put in that. Did he even bother start to replant these? We'll let them build that. So you can do that with any of the resources. So as long as we are below 50%, below or equal to 50% on our logs, this lumberjack will be on. Once I select that, that is. So that's kind of simple, right? It makes sense. This turns on whenever that's on. Or rather, this turns on whenever this is on. And we can do the same thing for lumberjack as well. What we'll do is go ahead and build a lumberjack here. Finish. And that's going to need power, so... Now, we'll do the same there. So whenever our plank level is below 50%, our employee here, let's grab one, Rual Bocas, whatever, will go to work and start making planks. However, it only really makes sense for him to try to make planks when there's logs available, because each plank requires a log. So that's where the whole logic automation comes into play. We could just leave it nice and simple. Well, we're low on planks, so go ahead and make planks. But it's better if you control that a little better, based on the availability of logs. So what we're going to do is build a relay. And we'll build it here. This says and log total, and we need to reverse the plank total. So basically this will only be on if we have logs and our plank total here is low. So in order to do that, we need another relay. This is not plank total. And we come back over here, select relay 2, since I know that's exactly what that is, and call it plank total lacking. I don't know. So it automatically renamed it here. So what we really want to do is flip this around as well, so that our plank total is greater than 50%. At least in terms of logic, it makes more sense that way. And so by doing this, we know that our plank total is not greater than 50%. And so we come over here, and because, hey, what are you doing? Log total is greater than or equal to 50%. At least I think it is. Nope, it's less than 50%. So we actually need to, in order to make this make sense, do another one for that. Excuse me. Not log total. Forgot to flip that around. So, in this particular case, it'll only start making planks when we have enough logs, more than 50% of our logs are available, like over here, and we're less than 50% here. That's right, right? Yeah. So what we're going to do for this inventory, just to test this, is go ahead and set our logs to 180. Whoops. And so that sensor turned off because we're at 88% of our logs. And so this doesn't quite make sense anymore. So we can set that to pass through in case we screw up with our logic. and that will happen. And so basically what pass-through does is just say, take whatever value this has and pass it on through to whatever's depending on this relay. So in this particular case, this relay is checking the log total, finding that it's now meeting the greater than 50%, because that's really what we want before we start making planks. And we should probably just set that back. Or flip this around. Plank total lacking. Okay. Set that pass through for the moment. Like I said, even I've got to work on some of the logic here. So we're less than 50% on the logs. So, and that's what we want to depend on. We only want to make our planks if we have enough logs and we're less than 50% here. So really, I didn't need these particular relays, but they can be useful for reversing logic. So basically, if we set this to not, basically it says we only care about this if it's not greater than 50%. So yeah, in this case we want it to be 50% or greater, but before we start making planks, but we can do things with that. And the question is, relay 1. I didn't set that correctly over there. So now that this is messed up at the moment because of the not, it turned off, and therefore the building turned off. And you can make many buildings as you want, even buildings that don't really care about whatever resources you're talking about depend on a relay or other sensor. So in this particular case, we just have the one lumber mill, but you could have 50 lumber mills, all depending on this one particular relay, or any combination of other sensors. So that's a basic AND use. So you could also do OR. So in this particular case, if this is less than 50%, or we have greater than 100 or greater than 50% of our logs, then turn on any of the lumber mills. So if or, then turn on. If this or that, then turn on that. And so you can make it a lot more complex. So let's get an example. Oh, let me build another trio of sensors. These are going to be very important overall. Let me see, weather station. Keep forgetting about that. These are going to be extremely useful to you. So you can, the weather stations will only detect one type of weather. So you can have either temperate weather, drought, or bad tide. But if you build all three, then you can detect exactly which season it is or what weather it is. So this one's going to be water, or rather temperate. This one's going to be drought. and this one's going to be bad tide. And you can do the exact same things with them. Let me see here. See how I change the weather environment. Do, 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 do. And science. See, I should have practiced this, but I don't. I don't do that. I'd rather play this game than do this or practice for my streams. No, I'm not doing that. Thank you. Jump to next season. There. So we jumped to drought. So we went from this one being lit up to that one being lit up. Let me see if I can jump to bad tide. Yeah, sorry for all that, but we got there eventually. I think the game sound is a little loud. Let's turn that down a bit. And so, we got our bad tide coming in. And what we should see is this sensor click on. Ta-da! It is interesting to note as well that the water sensor, the depth sensor, turns off when we have bad tide. This is what the bad tide looks like if you haven't seen it before. But yeah, I think it's interesting that the depth sensor can technically be used as a bad water detector. So, this particular case, when we have bad tide, we want this to turn off, the water pump, because it's basically going to be useless, so we may as well put those resources to something else. So, we just set that to temperate weather, and it'll only turn on when we have temperate weather, regular water flowing. However, bad tide, well, Lumberjack and the water wheel really doesn't care if it's regular water or bad tide, so it can just go about its business. Now, that's useful, but what if we want to, well, if we had static water like a lake, we might want to only get water when our water level is low and bad tide is not around, it's temperate weather. So what you would do is something along the lines of another relay. So we take our depth sensor, well, temperature sensor, temperate weather, and depth sensor. Make sure the depth sensor is, say, above 30 before we start pumping. We call this water levels. Because why not? And so we could then set it to water levels. But what if we only wanted to pump when our water levels are kind of low? Why is that still off? No, I know. I did a silly. Water level is greater than or equal to 0.35. But what if we also wanted to take into account our stored water? Well, then we need to build another level of logic. So we grab another relay. We point it to this relay. Whoops. Finished now. And we say water total. So if our water total is less than equal to 50%, and our water levels, which depends on this, is on, then we'll call this pump water. Then pump water. Now, the reason this isn't on is what? Oh, water measurement is below 0.35, which I should have done more water on here so that to make sure that that's higher than that. But we can do something about that. I think. Okay. Water level increasing. Perfect. So, if the water level is, say, above 50%, above 0.5, and it's the temperate season, and our water levels are low, then we pump water. And so you can stack logic on top of logic using relays. And we'll go ahead and jump to another season once again to demonstrate this. Okay, we got a bad tide approaching, even though our water level is above 0.5. We don't have the temperate weather anymore. We have bad tide coming. Therefore, our water level sensor, our relay, has turned off, which in turn turns off our pump water relay, which of course means we're not going to get any new water until a season changes again, which makes this a lot more automatic. You don't have to worry about it as much. Now, one of the things I wanted to do is, in a case of desperation, go ahead and pump water. Like if you're really low on water, but it's bad tide or drought or something like that, but you have a reservoir of water, you could go ahead and start pumping that out. But I didn't put enough water on this map to make something like that happen. But you could do something different. Say, let's see. Put another sensor in. Or rather, resource counter. Again, water. water is less than or equal to, we'll do that. Say 10%. And put in yet another relay. And that's the beauty of it. You can put as many relays as you want. And do an OR this time. So pump water, or did I call that emergency? No, I didn't call that anything. We'll call it water emergency. So if our water levels are sufficient and we're the right season, we have the right amount of water being pumped, detected in our water source, and it's the right season, then what we can do is just, but our water levels are low, we can just go ahead and force it to pump water anyway. We'll call this water logic. And so right now it just makes sense anyway. It's doing its right thing, the right thing anyway. Why are you guys sleepy? I guess I need a new home for you guys. Fine. We can do that. Not that I wanted to do that, but we can do that. And you can do the same sort of stacking for any of these. Why are you exhausted? So you could do the same sort of logic for any of the buildings, period. So what we're going to do is put up a farm down here, since we can build one down here. By default, it's again not automated, but you can automate it. Let's plant some potatoes. Let me pause this real quick. We'll set up the automation for temperate weather. Now, I wish that this allowed you to do a little bit more than what it does. Some buildings you can do very cool things with, like various ranges. When it's on, do this. When it's off, do that. In particular, you can do that with floodgates. So I'm going to pull these out. Automate, let's set for temperate weather. So here we have, based on the temperate weather sensor. If the sensor is on, we'll set the floodgate level to this level. In this case, we want to let water flow. But when it's off, when it's not the temperate season, we want to set it to, say, 1 to do something like, in the case of a drought here, we want to hold on to as much water as possible. However, we need to do some more logic on this because we don't want to hold on to bad water at all. So let's do a little logic here. So we'll create a new weather, or relay, not weather. So first of all, we want to have temperate weather. If it's temperate weather, we'll hold on to the water, about 80%, 80 some percentage of the water. And when it's drought, we want to do the same thing. We don't want that water to just go away. So we do our and here. So we'll need, didn't do that instantly. We need another relay. Actually, I set that to and, that should be or. But, exclusive or. Now this is going to be interesting. Alright, hang on. Let me think about this a moment while I rename that. Temperate or drought. Okay, so if it's temperate or drought, we want it to be one thing. We probably want not drought. Or excuse me, not bad tide. So how are we going to achieve that? That's the question. Alright. What we need is a not bad tide relay. So we'll quickly build another one. So we switch this we'll call this water flow. If I can learn to type. So we'll allow water flow if it's not bad tide and it's temperate or drought. So we come over here, select water flow, finish that sensor, and so when it's on, which it is currently, we'll hold on to 95% of the water. When it's off, which will be when bad tide is here, then we just let all the water flow through. Alright, so as you can see, they're up, therefore our logic works. We'll go ahead and advance to the next season, and it opens right up to let the bad tide through. As you can see, the bad tide is flowing, flowing, flowing. Why is this overflowing the riverbanks? We don't want to hold on to any of that bad water. Now, it doesn't have to be strictly based on water levels either. There's a sensor for flow rate, which I haven't used yet. But I do think it's interesting that I think bad water flows quicker than regular water. So we're back to regular. Now, this worked, and it worked well, but the problem is we're still using, or still have a lot of contaminated water in here. So what we probably want to do is enhance this logic even further with a bad tide sensor below to 0.5 or something. So, what's our contamination sensor? Greater than 5%? That's fun. So we add another relay. Get rid of that one. Say contamination is not greater than 5%. Where's our not bad tide? Hang on. Let me rename this. Low contamination. Get these two together. So it's not bad tide weather and low contamination. Or actually, do we want that as not? Let's see if we set that to pass through. And this happens in programming all the time. You got to figure out your logic. Okay. I need to replant these trees at some point, but meh. What is going on with water here? The water should not be overflowing the banks. I'm not sure what's going on there. Alright. Our contamination is not greater than 5%. If contamination is less than 5%, probably exclusive or. If it's bad tide weather, no. We definitely don't want bad weather or bad tide weather. So another sensor or relay. It's not bad tide or our water is low contaminated. Then we add another sensor. We'll just do that as the name. Not bad water or low contamination. Maybe I don't need that. I might not need this one. Okay, let's delete that for the moment, so it's not in the way. Alright, so we have low contamination. We don't have bad water. It's not bad water. It's not low contamination. Or rather, we have low contamination. Therefore, this is on. And we're not in... Well, we're either in temperate weather or we're in drought. Therefore, temperate or drought, and not bad or it's low contamination. That turns it on. And thus, it's on. So that's a leap of logic. So we're checking a number of things here all at once, and they all have to be correct in order for this to be turned on. And just to check it, drought approaching, which is going to leave this turned on. Okay, bad tide. So as you can see, these turned off because we're currently low contamination, but that's going to turn off as the bad tide gets to it. It's currently drought season, so it's not bad tide or it's low contamination. Right now, low contamination, so we don't really care, but we're in the we're in the bad tide season, therefore this is off, and so this turns off. We'll wait until, there it goes. That turns off entirely because our contamination level is above 5% down here. It's at 20%. And then we'll go ahead and switch seasons, which turns everything back on except for that one because our contamination level is still at too high. It's 5%. Now, when that clears out with the fresh water, then this one will turn on and the gates will, well, floodgates will shut mostly, which is how we really want it to behave. It's going to take a minute because there's a lot of bad water. And there we go. It still needs to flush out more of this, to be honest. So what we should do is add another contamination sensor closer to here that we base this signal on. So let's do that. Where's that contamination sensor? There it is. Yeah, see, we're still at 5%. Though it should have opened that back up. Again, logic and testing is important. Alright, let's test this again. We're currently at low contamination. Come on, get here. We know you're coming. Alright, 2%, 4. Alright. So we've exceeded the contamination. Maybe we should flip this around. And set that to end. I guess we need to greater than or equal to. Okay, again. Okay. I wish I could just jump directly to bad tide as opposed to having to cycle through them at the system's own discretion. But that's okay. Okay, we're not contaminated. Not contaminated, or low contamination. So that's off. We're in bad tide season. Still kind of think this should be or. Not necessarily exclusive or. Okay, that's on. So we're definitely off, and all the others are off because it is bad tide. It's not temperate or drought, therefore, boom. Back to normal. So this should stay open as long as the contamination level is above 5%. Is at or above 5%. Alright, here comes the fresh water. 49%, 48, 47. 19, 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10. Excuse me. 9%, 8, 7, 6, 5, and there we go. So, now in this instance, this will only open when we're at 5% contamination and not in bad tide, but it will open during, or stay closed during drought season or temperate season to collect water and hold on to water, which makes our farming a lot easier. So that's the kind of power this automation has. It's just, you got to think things through significantly and experiment to get things working properly. And that's kind of what I wanted to demonstrate. The levels of logic that you can have in this. It really is computer programming with beavers. Or at least with the sensors. And so you can do all sorts of things, even though I'm not really doing nearly as much with it right now. But it's fun to explore. Like with the, if I had other water channels or something, I could probably pump out water to go somewhere else. Let's see what we can do here. If you haven't played around with the explosives in this game, you're missing out. Let's pause that for the moment. We're going to try to automate this too. We'll put in another depth sensor here. We'll say if the water level is over 90%, misspelled that entirely. I don't know what's going on with my typing skills today. And we'll put in another relay. Say it's temperate weather and the water depth is over 90%. And then we automate this. too much water. And we get that going when our water depth exceeds 50%. Or 90%. Which figures it would dip back down to 84 for that test. Well, when I want that to test. So we'll set that to 80. And I believe you can even measure wind speed, I think. Now, there are things on here that I have not tried yet, like the timer, detonator, a firework launcher, speakers, etc. And I definitely haven't experimented with the HTTP stuff, though I want to. That's web-based stuff, so I can literally have it updating a website. I haven't, like I said, tested that to find out how it works, though I am curious. You can even have a power meter, though I haven't tested this either. Power supply, demand, surplus. Ooh. And even battery charge. Does this have to be connected anywhere? Guess it has to be connected like that. Measurement 700. Nice. When it's below, say, 200, then turn on. Turn what on, you ask? Well, you can do some neat new power things, like a clutch, which we can add in here. Not that I need this many, or even one of these, but because I'm showing this anyway. And I'm sure we can automate that. If power meter 1 is on, then we engage the clutch, I guess. It's hard to tell if it's actually working as intended or not, because I have it attached right into that. Let's change this up. Automate. Clutch is something new that I haven't played with yet either. I haven't really found a use for it. Okay, so you can see these are turning in 2 different directions. So, as long as the power meter is engaged? Not engaged? I don't know. Okay, with it engaged, we have 1500 approximately power. Disengaged, we're down to 600 something. So, turn in automation for power meter 1, and what are we at? 700. We're less than 800 power. And then we... Aha! So that's what it looks like when it's engaging and not engaging. Although, I guess you need to be kind of careful with that, because you don't want it to be engaging and disengaging randomly, more or less like that. You want it to be steady. If you would, please. Guess you need to pick a better number. Alright, so if it's less than 700 horsepower available, then that should kick in, but it's not. I guess we need another relay. We'll call this low power. Okay, so when measurement is less than 750, then that is off. So we want the opposite of that, so we turn that on with the relay. But that doesn't seem to make sense. It does, but it doesn't. Because we're now getting well in excess of that. Let's see what happens when we drop into a drought. Excuse me. What we probably need to do is actually put this into a different portion of the power system in this particular case if we wanted this kind of behavior. Alright, the water stopped moving. But you're still turning. Why are you still turning? There we go. Power demand is down. Yeah, this is when we would want to do power meter directly. But truthfully, I've found almost no reason to use a clutch at all, so this is all kind of pointless. Because you always want to power your buildings. You don't want them to turn off. And it really doesn't matter if windmills are running all the time or not, because, hey, they're not breaking down, so what difference does it make? But in this case, this would keep your buildings powered in an event that you can't get the water power. And once our water really starts flowing again, that should kick the water wheels into motion, and it should disconnect our windmills. Any year now. We'll speed this up. We'll speed it up more. Here we go. But again, we have that on-off situation. Alright, let's see if we can circumvent that. I forgot to hold down the control. Good thing I can just click on these and finish them. I think the problem was that the windmills were feeding into the power supply. Nope. Still the same issue. Maybe the trigger value is too close. Maybe. This seems to be working a little bit better, but then again, the wind isn't blowing, so. Is there something for wind speed? Well, the power meter is something you're going to have to figure out. I'm going to have to figure it out. So that's something you can do, but I don't know. I think it's useful, the idea of shutting down your buildings, for instance, if you don't have enough power, or shutting down certain buildings, but I'm not entirely sure how to use it yet. Let's see what other sensors we can play with. The population counter, the chronometer, which is basically allowing you to choose actions based on time of day. This is one I haven't touched at all either. Oh, fine, I'll give you some health care. Yeah, chipped teeth. Bummer. Okay, so chronometer, time range, working hours, non-working hours. If working hours, then do something. So, automate, chronometer. If it's working hours, turn on. That's simple enough. But if it's not working hours, then this will only turn on as a result of this, because hey, it's not working hours now. I have it set to non-working hours. So really and truly, this would be a completely useless building, because they're not going to go and work during non-working hours, and the building is only turned on with non-working hours. So it's a little weird. Now you can have the building, I don't know what the start of the day is, but say 7th hour to noon, they'll haul things, which makes for a very short day. And there goes the building, turning the haulers off. Which could be interesting. You could use that somehow. I'm not sure how, but you could use that. You could use that to your advantage. I'm sure of it. Like if you only want haulers or certain buildings to do actions during the morning, or the first part of the shift, then you could turn them off, or turn them off after that, allowing resources to go do something else. Say you have one for turning on or the morning shift and evening shift. Evening shift turns on, say, the farm, aquatic farm, and all gathering resources, whereas in the morning you're doing the industrial stuff. You could do something like that. So let's see how that would work. So we'll need another one of these. All right. Let's just set that to none, to normal. Set the gathering to morning. Where is my... Yeah, there it is. All things involving collection, we'll set to morning. That we will set to evening. Take advantage of the power supply I have over here. And I guess we'll get a gear factory going. Paper mill. And a smelter. Because why not? I guess I can set that to earlier hours. I don't know what time they get up in the morning. Or what time it technically even is. But at some point, this is going to kick in. And they should be going to gather. Whoops, did I set that to contamination sensor? I guess I did. And so they're going about their business, gathering food, blah, 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 blah. Until about noon. And it's slowly sliding up. I don't know if you can actually see that little nod, or node, which indicates the current measurement, but it's slowly approaching this. And then we should see that switch over. Yep, there it goes. And now everyone who is doing anything gathering is going to go and do their day job, well, night job. Which means they're coming over here, they're doing stuff, they're being important, or at least trying to be. And so that's something cool you can do as well. Yeah, we're just going to pretend this is working perfectly. Do they actually have enough power? Occasionally they do. let's just set that to engaged. And so that's how that works. You can actually automate your entire city this way. And it doesn't matter how many buildings of a particular type you have or anything else. You can create subgroups of, say, your lumber mills that operate essentially on the same behavior, but for instance, during a drought, you may have some of the lumber mills turned off, some of them turned on, all depending on the way you set up your relays and the logic using them. So there's a lot of things you can do. It's very powerful, and I'm only really getting my feet wet with it myself. So I just wanted to give you a taste of that real quick. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and switch over to our actual game, our stream game, and play for a bit. And hopefully that helped you out in some way, shape, or form. Maybe you learned something, maybe you didn't. But I hope it helps. I'm probably going to edit that down a bit for YouTube. Alright. When last we were here, I don't know what we were doing. Oh yeah, I remember now. We were trying to expand. Let me figure out where I am exactly in the orientation. What we wanted to do is get up and go over this hill and get over here. Partially to get at this, partially to get down there, to get all those additional resources. But I have no idea how we're going to go down yet. I don't think I have explosives yet. Yeah, I do have level 1. The regular dynamite, so I could do it in one block at a time once I actually get down there, but we're not there yet. And I need 2,000 science so I can learn tunneling, so I can go under here to build a bypass for bad tide. At least that's what I want to do. And of course, I gotta unlock a whole bunch of sensors. Because I have not yet started to automate this, though I have worked fairly hard at automating on my non-stream game. Why is the water being so variable? Now, how are you guys doing up here? Oof. Manage distribution. We're never going to export water. Ever. So we'll set that high. We need water badly. And we're never going to export that either. I take that back. If we build another district off that, we might need to. let the water flow through, or antidote flow through. And this is going to take forever. In my off-stream game, building the mine takes forever. I started working on it and building a bunch of other stuff, and it still isn't finished. Alright, how much does it cost to build a water sensor? Depth sensor, 200 science. Let's go for it. Don't know where we're going to put it quite, but what does it require? Gears and scrap metal. That's not too bad on the resources. Automate. Depth sensor. Hurry up and build that. How are we doing on food? Not bad. Could always be better. You guys get to harvesting those potatoes, whatever. Carrots. Guess until the depth sensor is built, you can just leave that on. Yeah, what is Alt? Yeah, okay, there we go. I really built that at a bad spot. Should have built it over here. But that spot does have the advantage of, if it's in bad tide, that's not really an advantage. If it's over here, it would get bad water from here, as well as during bad tide. So let's build another one. Bad tide approaching. Yay. Speak of the devil. Well, at least for the moment. Let's get as much water as we can. You guys start harvesting. And part of the reason I need to get upstream is to do something about the water here. Now, I could do another district and just start from scratch and hope for the best up here, but I don't want to do that. I'd rather have them build the resource and everything before that new district needs it. And I don't get why that water level is varying so much. We need those zip lines, especially up here. But I also need another water source. Just plain, regular water. But everything seems to be over there, or up there. In theory, there could be something over here, but we're not seeing any signs of it. Just bad water everywhere. And see, I think I'd probably use a relay as well. So if the water is lower than 50%, and I don't know, it's temperate season, or it's temperate season, then turn on. How much is a relay? 50. But then that's 300. And I don't want to spend 300 science on that right now. I don't have the money for, or the science for it. It really feels like nothing is getting done. It's not true, but it feels that way. Alright, let's see. Okay, that requires metal, which we're still struggling with at the moment. We need 18 more metal blocks before we can start to make our explosives. Partially just because I can. Potato, potato, real potato, potato. Alright. It's time to let the bad water through. Excuse me. Actually, you know what? The water level doesn't increase here because of the other opening there. Because it'll just continue to flow over there instead of over here. So that should help out a bit. You're not helping. Oh, I didn't set that back on. I've already gotten used to automation, apparently. How are other buildings coming along? They haven't started work on that. Have started working on this, but still have a long ways to go. Let's set the priority on this higher. Because if we can at least get this together, then build across here, we can go ahead and access that if we want. Alright, drought's almost over. Or not drought, bad water's almost over. And why are you still flooding that? Got to pause that, but that's okay. Make sure we're blue. Yep. Okay. Get that back up to 85. That back up to 85. Get that pumping again. Alright, there's a fair amount of bad water there, but it's not catastrophic. Yeah, there we go. Nothing to gather right now, so you can go do something else. Whoops. 4 more metal blocks. 3 more metal blocks. Then we can start to make some physical changes to this map. Well, more physical changes. Where are you? Okay, you're doing your job. Good. You're not doing your job, pal. Beaver is injured. Oh no. Oh, you're grinding your teeth. And you are recovering, okay. Just finished the building. Question mark. Alright, we need to steal somebody from somewhere. You guys aren't doing anything. One of you can come with me. New grass. Make me some explosives, new grass. There's some things I just never bothered with before, such as benches. Because, why? But, hey, why not? I don't even know what it costs to make a bench. 2 logs, 2 planks. That's a lot. That is actually very resource intensive for what it is. It doesn't even really do anything. How are you guys doing up here? Ah, we got some more of the windmills together. That's good. I don't know what they're going to be connected to yet, but it's good that they got them. I would have expected it to be more windy up here, but as you can see, not one of them is turning. Why, hello there, Spring. The beavers
Spring Moon
are,
Turtle just resubscribed for 33
beavering.
months. Thanks to @Z3R0_1 for my sub gift.
You're welcome, as always. Thank you for tolerating me. As not only a streamer, can't see my face. What? Alright, what's going on with that? Of course. There was an update, I guess, to my camera software, and it didn't launch automatically. There. So, I've had a black screen, no camera for hours now, and didn't notice. Ta-da! It didn't matter. Did anyone really want to see me anyway? Alright, what can we put up here? Alright, all of our requested windmills are built. Now we only need a bunch of other stuff. Hmm. Truthfully, I have a feeling this stuff will never be finished. Still have 5 empty beds, so we don't need to build any new housing up here. If I could get the stupid zip lines built, then we'd have a better chance of getting stuff together. Certainly would have a better chance of getting these things moving faster. That needs 5 more metal blocks. This needs 20, which may as well be 1,000,000. And then so on and so forth. But it's moving. Work is happening. You're gonna finish those stairs up? You're gonna finish that up, right, buddy? No. You just added the final bit there, but didn't finish it up. What a jerk. And how are we doing? We have 5 explosives. Woohoo! Beavers with dynamite. Who could ask for more? What? What are you talking about? It's fine. Everything's fine. You know what? Where'd that dynamite go? There. Okay, perfect. For now, we'll pause this. Still, poor thing. probably my fault. Okay, so we got that pylon together. And as soon as they finish building this, which will take forever, we will finally be able to use the zip lines, period. At least to go within this town area. Boo. Silly puppy. Yeah, alright. So we're already getting explosives. Good. Now to try to figure out how to get down here. Alright, so it'll still be a while before they get up here. Or get over there. Let's set that to lower priority. And let's set this to higher priority. Alright, our staircases are in. So we can actually get over here. Have they started working on this? No, not yet. These poor suckers have so much to do. Okay, good. They're beginning to build this stuff. Let's make that higher of a priority. In fact, top priority. So we can start pumping water in here. I think we still only have one hauler. Yeah. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and release the beast. I mean, we still had open beds, but we need more haulers, we need more construction people. We need everything up here. More resources, period. Excuse me. And if we can get some trees up here, thank you. If we can get some trees up here, then at the very least we could do some local stuff. Build a lumber mill and gear factory over here as well, rather than having to import everything. May as well get these queued up. Oops. Good. It's going to be a pain in the butt, at least until we get the zip lines running. But we'll be able to grow some food up here, hopefully, and hopefully be able to grow some trees too. Was not holding down the Alt key. I was holding down the space bar. Yay. Okay, how are things looking? You still have no metal blocks. And you are not producing much bad water. I was kind of worried about this. Let's watch until it gets to 100% and see if it actually ticks up this bad water counter. Yeah, it does. Okay. Well, let's give you a shorter path. Or at least an eventual shorter path. I really feel like I need another wood place, workshop. We'll unpause these. When we get workers, we get workers. food stores are not in question at the moment, which is good. Oh no, not a puppy. Oh, alright. No, they did not finish the building up. I thought it had been finished. Oh well. I am very curious about the benches. Like I said earlier, they're kind of pointless. They're just decoration, and I'm sure the beavers will use them, but I don't think it improves anything. Yeah, I'll come back and check on those later. Let's see what this unconnected building business is. Oh, they built the stairs, but not the, or rather, they built the gathering point, but not the stairs. There we go. Building lacks goods. Which building? The wood workshop. You need pine resin. Alright. I think we can do a tapper over here. I don't think we'll be able to replant any of these trees that are currently over there that are on the bad water. Contamination barrier. Let's just do that and see how it goes. Not cutting down any trees over there, so I don't know why I went over there to start cutting a tree down. Those contamination barriers will take forever because they are made from metal blocks. Could you focus on the tapper shot, please? I mean, great, you started putting down the metal barriers. Good for you, but I want the tapper shack more than the barriers. So, please? All right. We need pretty much 3 triple platforms. So we gotta get down lower somehow. Lower and lower and lower. Guess I could go ahead and unlock the double dynamite now, but no. Double dynamite requires extract, and I don't have extract at this point. I barely have explosives. So we'll do this regular dynamite, one explosion at a time. drought approaching. Great. Where am I even trying to go? Aha! We can pause that for now. But at least it's filling, and we already have somebody working there. And planting crops, which is going to come in handy. What are we planting? Carrots? Good. For science, we can do that. It's going to take a lot of stuff, and it's going to take a long time. Okay, what was that overhang? I wouldn't say I'm having the most fun, but I am having fun. Are you having the most fun? I don't know how I'm going to do this. I can wrap up in a couple minutes, in fact. I was kind of planning on doing about 3 hours. So, we can go ahead and wrap up. Just give me a couple minutes here. Yeah, because I don't know what I'm doing. I'll figure this out next time. Alright, let me go ahead and save. And the main menu. Alright, so I'll continue to work on my sound problems and other problems and figure things out for next weekend. At least I'm planning to stream next weekend, probably both Saturday and Sunday. Apologize for last weekend, the only one stream, and only one this week. Can't talk. I'll be back soon enough, and hopefully I'll have all the sound figured out now that I have my setup updated a little bit. And I hope you have a great week, great day today, and I will see you again soon. Bye.